And last but not least, let's celebrate the 10th anniversary of X-Men Days of Future Past. So yes, we transitioning from animation to live action, right? And I'll use that pretty much to kick off my pre-ramble, right? So yeah, we all grew up on the X-Men series, right? So who would have thought back in 2000, Bryan Singer and 20th Century Fox at the time decided, here's what, let me just make a movie out of this, right? Blade was a success. But in this case, that was like, yeah, we really want to take the whole live action superhero movie thing seriously, right? So you have a big studio, let's put this out, right?
However, Bryan Singer originally didn't want to do X-Men.
Really? Okay.
He turned it down like 3 times because he thought the comic books were unintelligent literature. That was the thing back then. It's like,
wow. Okay. I didn't know.
There was always above the material, right? They always feel above the material.
Oh wow, okay. Like I legit didn't do that. Okay. Yeah.
Well, no, that would actually explain that a little bit, because I remember that guy, Q was the only one who actually sent his guys to go out and get comic books on X-Men, because as far as the rest of it was concerned, director dude was like, no, where I'm doing this own thing and my own whatever it is like that. So he didn't even bother to read the comic books. But I didn't know though about his whole thinking that it was unintelligent or passing it up for a few times before he came on it.
Yeah. Okay. But we actually, Ricardo and I, we actually covered X-Men years back, right, when it celebrated its anniversary, right? And for what it was, I thought that show was pretty solid as well. I thought that it paved the way for the 2000 superhero movies. So right after that was Spider-Man, and that just elevated the comic book movie into new heights and whatnot, right? And then there was X2, which I absolutely enjoy as well. For me, that is the best of this, let's just call it trilogy. First trilogy, if you will, of X-Men movies, right? Absolutely enjoy X2, right? And then there was X-Men The Last Stand. I will make a couple of mentions of it in this review here, which dropped the ball so much, boy. I will never forget seeing this theatrically. I just let down though, right off the gate though. Brett Ratner, like I'm not saying Brett Ratner is like the best director ever, but he was the guy behind Rush Hour 1 and 2. Like I'm not even gonna bring up 3, right? But it's so funny, right? Because nobody talks about Rush Hour 3 and nobody wants to talk about X-Men The Last Stand, right? But yeah, that was such a letdown though,
However, once you look at Dark Phoenix and then you look back at this, it's like we didn't have it that bad.
Yeah. That is a good point. That is a good point, right?
That is the main reason. That's why the main reason I'm not super excited of Days of Future Past, because they really dropped the ball. They totally dropped the ball after. My thing was that, all right, you fuck it up with 1, 2, and 3. Well, 3 really. But you say, okay, you basically, they did a decent job with the reboot of with First Class. Solid movie.
Which you'll get to in a bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably still my favorite thing. And then now you get a mulligan. They get a second chance. And then every movie after that, they fuck it up with. And to me, they kind of had no excuse, to be honest. And we'll get into that. But in my humble opinion, after Days of Future Past resetting it, that is when they should have leaned into the X-Men 92 stuff. Because it is around that time. Have one last movie with this trilogy, call it the Magneto trilogy, whatever it is, and then start with the X-Men 92 stuff. Because they hinted at that with Thing now, with Apocalypse now, or whatever it is. But they didn't do that. And it's like they just jump into Apocalypse immediately. They could have set things up a little better. And the thing is, by around this time, the MC already had the ball rolling. That was already a working template. As I say, they had no excuse to me. They just didn't worry to make an effort at all. It was just kind of pathetic. Whatever.
Exactly. So So before we get into First Class, right? There was X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is, I would say this and Dark Phoenix is up there as probably two of the most hated, X-Men movies, right? I'll never forget, I always see this, seeing the bootleg version of X-Men Origins came out online.
Right. It leaked.
Yeah, that was a moment too. That was a sad moment, right?
Yeah.
And I never bothered to see it theatrically. Or how we got it.
How Ole could do that to Deadpool? How Ole could do that to Deadpool?
Yeah, for real.
Boy. And I do blame Ryan Reynolds at all for saying, look, I love that character, but look what all they did with him in
Yeah.
X-Men Origins, right? The man literally had to go out his way to reinvent the character, right? You know, in the great Deadpool, right?
I don't know.
Um,
I mean, listen, we just learned the hard way how much like a lot of politics is going to this kind of stuff, right? It's not it. Listen, this is something I've said before. It have a lot of goddamn Philistines at the top, right? You know, just people who just don't give a fuck about this stuff at all. And it's like, look, if you're not making them money or you can undermine the power in some way, they'll just shut that shit down. And that's like perfect example of that. Like, if I remember, I don't know if the story is fully true, but like he had to leak that, right? The Deadpool stuff, right? To get out there. And if it didn't leak, no, it would have never make them good movies. Like it's stuff like that now. It's like, all right, well, they just absolutely refuse to make good shit, dude. Like whatever.
yeah.
They just don't like this material.
Right. No. Quick issue, right? Just looking back at it, right? Of course, you know, this is a show, you know, the X-Men series is a show that introduced us to the great Hugh Jackman, right? Who, you know, the years later, we'd find out could actually sing as well, right? Because the man was in Les Miserables. I was like, oh shit, you could sing.
Oh, yeah, he's a big
You know?
theater guy, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, people will make the argument that, you know, it's not really so much about the X-Men. It's about Wolverine, right? So Wolverine must be front and center, right? Which is understandable because, you know, he is the standout character in all these shows, right? For better or for worse, right? But I'm bringing this up now because, yeah, that's why we will get stuff like X-Men Origins Wolverine. That's why we got the Wolverine, which I thought was okay for what it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible. It was fine. I'll never forget our colleague Cece voting that as one of the top 10 worst movies of the past decade. You know what I mean? But
which one? The one in
the
Japan?
Wolverine,
Really?
yeah, the one in Japan.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, they hated it. They hated it, right?
Okay.
But though Logan though for me is the best out of these Wolverine-led films by far, right? I own it on Blu-ray. I'm still wondering if it's this Logan or if it's the X-Men Days of Future Past into Apocalypse version of Wolverine that we'll see in the new Deadpool movie. We're not sure. I guess we'll see, you know what I mean? But yeah, Logan stands as the best, right? But yeah, in between that time now, there was X-Men First Class, right? Which came out around the time when, you know, when the MCU was growing and developing, right? And it was directed by Matthew Vaughn, right? You know, I think, yeah, right. This was right after he put out Kick-Ass, right? And yeah, love Kick-Ass. And for him to follow up Kick-Ass with X-Men First Class was fantastic in my opinion, right? But I would say that this film was like him kind of showing. Yeah, I kind of into James Bond shit though. So like, if you rewatch First Class, there's a lot of allusions, references, to 60s James Bond films, right? Whether it's the end title sequence or the setting of it in the 60s and the whole Cuban Missile Crisis and all this stuff. There's a lot of James Bond worship in that film, right? So yeah, it would make sense for him to put out, you know, Kingsman and the sequel, which, you know what I mean? And I still haven't watched the Kingsman. Yeah, I know he made, right now, Ricardo, your worst film of the year, Argyle. I still haven't watched that.
Argyle, fuck yourself.
Argyle. But yeah, you know what I mean? But, then, you know, much I was surprised in 2014, you know, X-Men Days of Future Past came out, right? And I will never forget the hype surrounding it, right? You know, it was just off the concept of it all, right? We take in the OG X-Men and we mix it with with the First Class X-Men, right? We never saw that before. If I'm not mistaken, this is like technically the first like crossover kind of movie. Like what?
Yeah,
that's
nice. And it was a smart call, like a really smart call doing that. This movie also had a brilliant marketing campaign behind it. I forget what it was exactly. I had to look it up. But it had this brilliant thing where they did this kind of because First Class did this great job of the you know alternate history stuff. They did that. They frame it well. Magneto is blah blah blah. And they did this like really realistic kind of news thing. Or always call that ARG stuff where they just have a bunch of like historical stuff. It's like, all right, Magneto is the reason why JFK got assassinated, and they do a bunch of shit with that. It's like it's really clever news stuff. I forget. I had to go back and like look up the site. There's a site that covers it. And I just thought that whole thing was brilliant. It had a great marketing campaign leading into this.
Right. So that's just a few things for you, and then you'll get to your individual histories with the film, right? So yeah, you know, saw it theatrically, absolutely enjoyed it. It was a crowd pleaser. Like I'll never forget, you know, the audience house with just reacting positively to everything that we were seeing here, and we just had a blast, right down to the very end, right, which you'll get to, right? And my God, though, like in retrospect, the hype around that end credit sequence where we were like, all right, X-Men Apocalypse. bring it on. I'll never forget going in, seeing this. I think you were with me, Ricardo, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or maybe not, right?
Sorry, Intensity.
Yeah,
No,
Intensity,
we saw it in
yeah.
Intensity. Yeah.
Yeah, watching this boy and just like, look, I was being charitable with it too. I was just like, all right, outside that Apocalypse not looking like the way I knew him from the cartoon, okay, all right, but that don't make sense. But okay, all right, why Storm here? But okay, all right, this,
And then they go
that,
fuck up
all these kind of things.
Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta get
all these
Oscar
things.
Isaac. Yeah, we a good actor now nonsense, huh?
Yeah, boy, poor Oscar Isaac, boy.
And
I feel so
Ivan
sorry for him, boy. Yeah, boy. And sorry,
I
it's just
honestly, I honestly didn't think that he was a good choice for Apocalypse in the first place. I thought
Yeah,
he would have been
terrible.
better
Oh,
for
no.
Mr. Sinister. I thought he would have been better for Mr. Sinister, honestly.
Whatever. Like, why does the script sucked?
to hint at Mr. Sinister, you know, they hinted at him at the very end, Dread. But yeah, Apocalypse was a letdown, boy. Like, you know, like the first time I was a little fated, but when I watched it again at home, I was like, nah, no. And then we had Dark Phoenix, and the less said about that, the better. Like, but in my mind, I was telling myself, okay, well, it's just a hint at Mr. Sinister at the end of Apocalypse. Okay, well, this one will be about him. No, they just decide to revive the same Dark Phoenix saga again because they tried it with 3 with the last son and it failed. So let's just do it again. Let me get Sansa to play her and she gonna be all like, you know, trying to be all like emote and stuff is like, no, it do it. But the biggest sin of Dark Phoenix, right, outside of having Simon Kinberg direct the film, is that you could tell that everybody at this point in time just did not care, Tread. James McAvoy did not care, Tread. Like everybody in that. Michael
Jennifer.
Jennifer Lawrence. She checked out.
She was, she was out.
You know she's barely in makeup.
Yes, boy, yeah. Michael Fassbender did not care. Nobody cared. I didn't even go cinema to see this because I was just hearing how bad it was. I'll never forget, there was a Saturday where I was like, I'm not new, you know, in town, you know, I could actually go and see it, you know. But I tell myself, nah. Let me wait until it come out on digital. And I say that like, yep, smart choice, right? So yeah, boy, talk about a huge fall, though, in terms of that new reboot, right? But and of course, you know, there was the New Mutants, but who nobody cares about the New Mutants.
Yeah,
sorry, nobody cares about that, right? But yeah, you know, so look how ironic it is, right? So now Marvel Studios had to come in and say, look, you know what? Since these live action shows don't know what to do with the material, let me just take the old series where everything pretty much start off, or where everybody started loving X-Men in the first place, and let's like revive that, right? And you know, the rest, so to speak, is history, right? So yeah, Ricardo, your history with Days of Future Past, the X-Men shows before and after.
Yeah, again, I was never the biggest fan of the X-Men movies in the early days. Like it was good and it felt serviceable, but I couldn't go in good conscience say I loved them or anything like that. They're fine. Like I enjoyed 2, but I didn't love 2 as much as other people. Even though, that what do you call it, the White House thing with Nightcrawler, that was pretty good.
And the choice, a song, by the way. Perfect.
Yeah, but overall, you know, the first 3 films, well, the third film just ended up being a total meltdown for people. But I didn't really care for the first and second one all that much. Like, I get why they exist the way they were, why those decisions were made. But at the time, I was like, all right, whatever. Then First Class came out, and I really thoroughly enjoyed First Class because if I remember correctly, it was supposed to be the Magneto movie, the Magneto origin movie.
I think
so.
It technically is when you think about it, yeah.
Right. But they basically like because they had less of the we call it the Nazi hunting stuff, which was like the big highlight of that. And I just really thoroughly loved that movie, mostly because McAvoy and Fassbender were just great together. The core of the material is what works. The 2 of them is the story. Right? Once you stray from the story or you stray from the 2 of them, you run into problems, in my humble opinion. But once you have them, that core idea, the 2 of them as a friendship, you understand why they're friends, you understand why they have different worldviews, the trauma of the both of them, so on and so forth. And X-Men First Class.
And also, sorry to cut you there, they actually build that up a lot better than with the other films with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
By that point they're already old, so you like have to just like it's not like they meet, but you can see them meet, and then they build that friendship. Like, and in my humble opinion, the satellite disc sequence is so fucking good. It's one of the best scenes in probably all of the franchise. That's such a great scene. It's a simple scene, but they make it work. And it just come together really well. I mean, the only black spot on that movie was the Darwin thing. The Darwin thing was really bad. That's like kind of no excuse for that.
They could have done so much with Darwin, but
I mean, it's fucking Darwin, and they do that shit with him. I mean, come on. Like, what the fuck?
I know.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, thoroughly love the movie. Great thing. And then they end up like hyping up, the follow up to it and saying, oh no, they're going to square this with the previous material in some way. Like, all right, well, it only have one storyline that could do that, and it's one of my favorite storylines. It's a classic, Days of Future Past, and they did. And like, holy shit, they're doing Days of Future Past movie form. Let's see what we're gonna get and what they're gonna do with it. How they're gonna get both to work with it. What they're gonna tell as a story. And yeah, I was really hyped for this. It came well. As I say, it had a great marketing campaign leading into it. It did that great viral marketing stuff with the news thing. You could find the website. I swear that website might be still up, but it had a lot of great stuff involving like just like the history, the time period between both films, the Cuban Missile Crisis and then JFK assassination. They just did a bunch of like real world news stuff and squared it really well. It had like a big, I think it was like a documentary or something along those lines, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I just thoroughly love what they do with this and how they made it work, how intelligent it was. And this movie is pretty good for me. Like, I don't super love it. And the reason I don't love it as much is only because all the follow-up films are so bad. Like, it's like, wow, they really, like, blew it. So I'm not excited to watch it anymore. It's not like me watching back Iron Man 1, it being a good movie on its own. But if, like, they completely shit the bed and they end it with Iron Man 2, I don't care about Iron Man 1 all that much. But watching back Iron Man 1 and knowing we're going to get Infinity War Endgame is like, all right, well, yeah, this shit with it, right? It's that. It's a real shame that they just F this up. But yeah, as it is a really solid movie and they make it work for what it is. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Tracy, your history with Days of Future Past and the X-Men movies before and after.
I've had a seesaw run with the X-Men films. Not to do that whole revisionist, kind of life or anything of the sort, but I remember when the first two X-Men movies came out, I was pretty excited. I have a memory of being in a public library, the internet, and watching. It was like the senator in the first one. I can't remember his name right now, but the senator in the first one, and he had a whole site there on like mutants and what their point was, and why we need to not have them around and all that kind of stuff. And I went in very excited. Senator Kelly. His name escapes me. So I had my moments of good vibes there. X2 was brilliant. I have a memory of going in Caribbean 8. I was going to see something else, and they didn't have room for that something else. And so I got the tickets with Mom, and we went and we saw X2 in Caribbean 8, and that was a whole blow mind scene. And then there's a couple of them that I generally like. I accept that they exist, but I don't really talk about them until we reach to First Class. I will throw this out because I'm realizing that studios don't learn, and this is only something that dawned on me this very morning. In terms of, look at what Fox did, and look at what Sony is trying to do now. You would think that somebody would learn, because you came out with this X-Men movie and you said, okay, we're going to launch a franchise, and then everything started to get diluted, but you kept putting out a bunch of X-related stories. We're going to have this X First Class, and we're going to do this X movie, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to do one on Storm, and all this kind of jokey. And then now Sony is doing the same thing with the Spider-Verse, with like, okay, we have a Madam Web here, and then we're going to do this, and Silk has just been cancelled off of being a TV show, but it's like nobody listens, nobody seems to know, or to understand, or to check out the past.
But they're moving ahead with Spider-Man Noir.
Which is not bad idea.
Noir.
I just annoyed that they're making that live action. But whatever. It's not a bad idea though. Like, it's like fine. Just whatever. If he playing it, then good.
If he's coming back, it's official that he's coming.
Right, good.
But it's just so weird for me that they don't really listen. But in terms of the X-Men, I'm like X1, X2. X3 tried to do this thing with the Logan and Storm, and I thought they were going to do that thing where the two of them were actually started to be in a relationship, but they didn't go on that way. I will throw this out just for us. I will throw this out. I am hoping, because I keep hearing about like a bunch of cameos coming up in Deadpool versus Deadpool and Wolverine, and I'm really hoping that Harley comes back and says, "You know what happens to a toad that is struck by lightning?" I really need that line to come back. It's that line and the mother, the queen from Mortal Kombat 2, Too bad
You know,
you will die.
Sandel.
Those are my two. Those are my two lines. So going into Days of Future Past, I remember the hype for that because it was like it felt like it was going to be like a reset. Like, okay, the stuff that you saw going on there with 3 and all this kind of stuff, this is the actual film that's going to move things forward. And it was brilliant. It was beautiful. I did not see, I must admit, I did not see the full, until recently, and by recently I mean this weekend, sat down and watched the Rogue cut. I was all like, I had the DVD of the theatrical version and everything of the sort, and that was brilliant. I sat down and I watched the Rogue cut, and I had my own thoughts about how I felt about that. But generally speaking, X-Men has been that kind of seesaw kind of way about it that at this point I'm like, okay, it's back home, quote unquote. Let's see what a Feige led. Because, Feige was like a producer moving up the ranks in Marvel when those movies were coming out. So his name is there. But now that he has his full hand on it, what's that going to look like and how are they going to build it? I'm very much ready for that. But Days of Future Past was a brilliant, at least a theatrical version. For me, it was a brilliant way to actually just sort of cross the two timelines, if you will, of McKellen and Fassbender. And I will end by saying I always believe watching First Class that scene in the bar was at the bar when he was hunting down the Nazis in Argentina. That scene in the bar would have been Fassbender's audition tape for James Bond.
To play James Bond.
Because when he gets
it's very Daniel Craig. It's that sort of gritty Daniel Craig style, Yeah.
I watched that and I was like, and then the camera is on him there as he gets the gun and he turns towards the camera and it's like, that's Bond. So I always figured that was it, but he never went anywhere for that. But yeah, that's my feelings with all that things X-film related.
Right. And lastly, Daniel, your history with Days of Future Past and the X-Men films before and after.
Well, the X-Men movies for me, they're my childhood. Like the X-Men, the first X-Men movie is what really inspired me to get into film. So it's like, I have my own nostalgia, my own love for it. But now that I'm looking at it from another lens, from the lens and the knowledge that, Bryan Singer didn't really want to do this, is only after he read the comics and saw the cartoon that he saw the themes of X-Men being about prejudice and all that stuff that really spoke to him. And he was like, okay, let's see what Bryan Singer is on board. So let's see what he can do. I saw it, loved. I liked it, but now that I'm looking at it now, it's like, yeah, you could tell he clearly wasn't a comic book fan because if you were gonna do this story, he basically just took Kitty Pryde's story from the comics where she was being hunted by the Hellfire Club and basically just gave that to Rogue. It was like where she was in the first movie, Rogue is hunted by the Brotherhood. So it's basically Kitty Pryde's story from the comics with Rogue instead. Whatever. I liked it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I still have nostalgic feelings for it, but my liking level has gone down a little bit. X-Men 2, I still, like I said, X-Men 1 sparked the sparks. This one was X2 was fanning the flame, and yeah, I really like X2. Is my, like I said, it's still my childhood. I grew up on that. X-Men: The Last Stand. I have complicated feelings about that one. I still had complicated feelings about that when it first came out because I was like, how old was I? 11 or something when that movie came out, and I could feel myself drinking that Kool-Aid. Like I really wanted to like it. I wanted to like it, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah. They wasted the Phoenix storyline. They wasted the Cure storyline. It's like, whatever. But then X-Men Origins Wolverine came out, and I was like, and I also wanted to like that one too. But after, You know, I was young and I was drinking a lot of Kool-Aid. Like, I wanted to like it, but but more I think about it, it's like, how could you fuck up these characters so bad? Like, how you could do that to Deadpool? Oh gosh. And after that, it was like, I just thought, okay, these X-Men movies are gonna be bad now. They don't really care about these characters. I just want them, and seeing as how they were getting the ball rolling on the MCU, it was like, okay, I want these movies to fail now so that the X-Men could join the MCU. But then I saw X-Men First Class, and I was like, okay, Matthew Vaughn, you put some gas in the tank. Okay, let's see where this could go from here. I really liked it. Then the Wolverine came out, and I had like, this is me going into these X-Men movies now with like really low expectations. So it was like, I went into the Wolverine, even though there are some problems with the third act, I came out of that movie thinking, okay, yeah, it wasn't bad. I thought this would have been worse than what I got, than what we ended up getting. So yeah, I liked it. The thing that sold me on Days of Future Past, like Ricardo said, was the marketing, but those trailers were just so goddamn good. The trailers were so good, and the one that really stood out to me, that really got me hyped for it, was the third one where, you know, Led Zeppelin's Kashmir started to play over it. Da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, and it's like, yeah. I really like the trailers, but we'll get into Days of Future Past when you're actually talking about the movie. Then what came after that? It was
You see how you forget Apocalypse.
Yes,
That's how forgettable Apocalypse is, right?
Yeah, Apocalypse. And I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt, you know, but it's like, oh gosh, the more I think about that movie is the more I think, wow, y'all really dropped the ball. Y'all really dropped the ball on X-Men Apocalypse. And then Logan came out and is like, okay, we'll end it here. We'll end it here. Like, this Logan is the end of the X-Men franchise for me.
I thought so too, you know, and then Dark Phoenix come out 2 years later. Like, why?
It's like, you know, fuck Dark Phoenix, fuck New Mutants, fuck that.
Thank you.
Logan is the definitive ending for me. So, with that being said, let's get into Days of Future Past, and let's talk about our complicated feelings about it.
All right. So, you know, Tracy mentioned earlier, you know, I am basing this off of the raw cut, right? That will be the director's cut of the film. This actually incorporates 17 minutes that will cut off from the theatrical version. And seeing it for myself, I can understand why, right? But just quickly, because I actually own, you know, Days of Future Past on DVD as well too, right? But I'll never forget the year after, like 2015, the raw cut dropped, and I was curious, right? And I watched it like a Friday night, and I just remember sort of watching, like, oh, okay, that real dragon story, though, you know what I mean? But shockingly, watching that over in preparation for this, I was like, nah, boy, like this, they actually actually made a great film just a little bit better, in my opinion, right? Just the storytelling in general. That's the core of it all, right?
Why it works is because why it works is because the editing with the sequence, because if you remember the theatrical cut, it was just one scene as a heist now. But then when in the raw cut, they have it as a double scene cutting between the old and the younger Magneto.
Yeah, that's why it works. Was
it's thought out. It's not like they just add a slapdash extra scene in and say, oh, call that George now.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking about the editing, when we get to the third act, that's why I have a little nitpick about it, which I'll address when we get to that.
Okay. But before we begin, right? So, fun fact, right? So, this is actually not the first X-Men movie to have Sentinels in it, right? Because a little film called X-Men: The Last Stand.
Well, fake Sentinels.
Oh yeah.
I know.
That's
and here's the thing.
But that was in the promo material. That was in the promo material in the trailer. And I was like, oh, right, shit. They're finally doing Sentinels. And in my humble opinion, they should have had Sentinels in 2. Or at least 1.
Yeah,
like, they should have fight up.
Heat up a little bit.
Right.
The Sentinels.
So in the third one.
Actually, the Sentinels were supposed to be an X-Men too, but they had to cut them for budget purposes.
Right.
Oh,
But I
okay,
thinking,
okay.
all right, finally, the third film we get some Sentinels, and it's the fucking danger room. It's like, shut up, go
Boy,
away.
I will never
Go
forget
away.
seeing that for the first time, boy.
Yeah,
And
boy.
like
Oh my
just
god,
I
bro.
was cursing like
Yeah.
internally, but like no,
When I see that,
Trent, no.
when I see that, I was like, all right, I know this movie gonna be shit. I was like, nah, boy. I don't expect the
No.
rest of this movie to be good.
And the worst part about it, though, in retrospect, you don't even see the Sentinel, you know. You just see smoke, you just see like a
Right, you
silhouette,
see a head.
and you just see the head with the eyes.
Right.
And then Wolverine, dog, like, didn't even see Wolverine sever the head, you know. He
Yeah,
just
that's
jumps, sorry, he get thrown in, then the head just
Right,
The
drops down.
fastball, the
Like,
fastball
Right,
special,
right.
the fastball special.
yeah, boy.
Right, all of that.
Like,
But it's like, dude, all this serious, Red? All this really serious with this, Red?
and then just looking back at it though, the slap to face, right, is the little title card, right? The not too distant future. So we all thinking, oh my god, like last time gonna touch on, you know, like what this movie here gonna touch on is like, nope, DJ room stuff, right? So anyway, so on to these are feature pass, right? So this is just my notes. I end up more or less writing down major plot points, right? So forgive me. This will be a little lengthy, but I'll move as fast as I can, right? The setup of it is great. The first act, right? You know, is this dystopian future. It's not just mutants who are being subjugated, right? But it's the humans, and we learn later on, is the ones who not only defend them at this time, but they are more capable of spawning mutants due to their genetic makeup.
Exactly.
They want to be subjugated by the Sentinels. I love
Yeah.
that. Like
Yeah.
I forgot about that little detail. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, because that is Master Mold's logic. Master Mold's logic is that, well, if I wipe out all mutants and still have humans and all it is make churn who have a statistical probability of creating mutants, then to remove the risk, I should kill out humans too. Like, that's it. It's simple logic. And they make it work. They put that in the concept. I'm like, yeah, good. They set that up nice. Good.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
mechanical way of thinking.
Yeah, simple utilitarian calculation.
Yeah, exactly. Bishop's in this movie though, and I forgot it's played by my boy Omar Sidra. Like
Right,
before
yeah,
I was
that was
like,
so, yeah, at
yay.
the time I was super hyped for that because I like the that movie he did with oh gosh, they remade it with
or
Kevin Hart.
the Untouchables.
The Untouchable, right? I remember thinking, oh right, it's this dude. I remember watching that film.
No,
and
no,
really
I
enjoying it.
know that's not the name of the film, but it's the something. I can't remember what it is.
The
right now.
Intouchables. I forget what to say.
I think it's the Intouchables or something. Yeah.
They remade it. They remade it with Kevin Hart in the American version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I actually like the design of him. I like the look, especially like the gun, that neon lit gun. That's
It kind of pissed me off by making Wolverine the center of it because he goes back in time in many versions of the story, and I thought he would have been like the star. Like, what is how this relatively unknown French black actor centered the movie in this way? Like, that unlikely. Like, no,
They would never do that in Hollywood.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything with Bishop. They didn't do anything.
Exactly.
He's just there.
Should do more, yeah.
Yeah. I know, but he was there because I guess because his future stuff, he had to be there, right? So that's
So, like, he's
for the
a
comic book
character.
fan.
They had to bring him.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean
Also,
you think Cable will be a part of it too, but it's like no, we're not doing he as yet. You know, you gotta wait till Deadpool 2 come out to actually see Cable, right? Yeah.
Also,
and speaking of looks,
rest in peace to Aidan Canto, who plays Sunspot in this movie.
Right.
oh, right. I forgot about that. Yeah. But speaking of the look though, of looks, right? I actually don't mind the humanoid look of the Sentinels, right? So yes, I know we used to the surrender now mutants from the comics, right, and the cartoon and whatnot, right? But in the context of this show, though, I think the humanoid Sentinel works, right? What I find real exceptional about them is how they absorb mutant powers, right? So like, there's a moment where one Sentinels block a punch from the Colossus, and then
And immediately,
instead of like replicating his skin, that was really cool. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's not really
It's not
absorbed, but it's not really absorbb. They have Mystique's powers, so it's like they could transform themselves to adapt to the mutant powers, so they could take them down.
That's when they start to win. They basically derive from Mystique's abilities. Yeah.
Right.
That's basically the plot line.
Also another character I forget was in this movie, Sunspot. He is there, and there's a moment where they actually adapt to his flame powers as well, right? Another cool thing about this first act too is that it starts with some members of the original X-Men movies, right? So you see Storm, Wolverine, Professor X, and even Magneto, right? Yeah, I mean, surprise, he has teamed up with our heroes to try to take down the Sentinels, right? We even see side characters like Kitty Pryde, played by formerly now Elliot Page, right? And Iceman, right? Bobby, right? He's there too. And speaking of Kitty, right? The show set up something really cool here, where we learn that she uses her powers to project Bishop's consciousness into his younger self a few days before a Sentinel attack takes place, right? So like even early on in day one, you're like, wait, like people getting wiped out, but then they cut back and then you're seeing they're alive now. What going on, right? And then they explain, well, no, what we see there is what will happen, right? And now the OG X-Men coming to try to prevent that. So I like that. I like that little setup there, right? And I like that there's a moment where Kitty is explaining all this kind of stuff, right? So she talk about, oh, this actually happened a few days before, right? And Wolverine just respond in this dry way, like, wow, like he just, like none of this make any sense to him, but he just more concerned about winning the war, right? So, but really when you think about it, that shit's really weird, though, we then get this bit of an info dump where Xavier lays out his plan. He has a plan laid out, right? Bolivar Trask, who I was surprised at the time was going to be played by Peter Dinklage, right? Remember, this is like around season 3 of Game of Thrones, when season 3 wrapped up, you know what I mean? Yeah. The still with the still infamous Red Wedding scene, you know what I mean? So yeah, we were on the GOT hype train, right? So I never forget, like, whoa, you in this? What?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But this was, if I remember correctly, a big continuity issue from the original trilogy. Because Bill Duke was the original Bolivar Trask, if I remember correctly.
The black dude.
Bill Duke. Right.
That was in part 3, right? Was it?
Yeah. And they also had some inconsistencies with Jean and her origin with X. So it wasn't like a perfect one-to-one thing. Whatever, it kind of.
Okay.
X has always been really hilarious where they come with their timelines, like where this fits in and what that does, and all like that. That's always hilarious.
I just assumed that with X-Men First Class, because that was so different, it's like that changed, that was the ripple effect that affected the future films. So it's like,
but a whole man do, so.
No, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, Mystique, played by Jennifer Lawrence, right? At the time she found out that Bolivar was experimenting with mutants to do this whole Sentinel program, right? So, because I don't remember the dynamic between Xavier and Raven, right? I.e. Mystique, right? All that well, right? It's interesting how they established that they were indeed brother and sister, like how we saw them in X-Men First Class, right? So, in other words, Patrick Stewart and both Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy are indeed the same Professor X and not alternate versions of each other. I thought that was really cool, though. We say they go to Magneto, who later on in the film, she said that she left Charles, that was in the end of First Class, to join with Magneto. So I like that. I like the idea that, it's not two timelines, but it's the same one. It's just that James is a younger version of Patrick Stewart. So that was a really, really, really smart call there.
Right.
But then we don't see any interaction between Mystique and Xavier in the classic. In the first 3 movies.
I was looking at how she was able to. The way how she was able to worm her way inside the mansion and all that kind of do all of that stuff. I know that Eric would have told her where things are and that kind of stuff, but looking at it now, I kind of feel like, okay, because she understood where everything was and all that kind of vibe. So even though they didn't have a one-on-one in the originals, I could still buy into the idea of Patrick Stewart's Charles being her, like, surrogate brother kind of vibe, and because of that kind of thing that they played with.
So as you mentioned, Ricardo, it has, it does the whole alternate history thing, right? So I love, like, just like in First Class, right? Here, we using the whole Paris Peace Accords from 1973 now to establish this impactful moment, right? Yeah, where basically Mystique kills Bolivar, like literally gun him down, right? And this was the first time that she ever killed anybody like that, and of course it would be the last, right? After she killed Bolivar, she was immediately captured and tortured by the government, and it's her DNA that they used to design the Sentinels that we see in the beginning here, right? So yeah, as you guess, the plan is basically to stop that 1973 assassination from happening, right? So that way the Sentinels will cease to exist, right? So I like that initially Xavier felt that he should be the one to do it, but Kitty was like, no, the more your mind will snap now, you know what I mean? The more days that you keep doing this, right? So we'll
the only thing with this, right? The only thing with this, I never know that Kitty Pryde have these powers. Where'd she get these powers from?
I didn't know that neither.
Exactly.
The reason why, because she was just a bit character in the old trilogy. We never really see.
Right, in the third one, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So.
However.
Yeah, whatever,
Moving on.
whatever. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's weird, right? Yeah, so Wolverine knows, like, I make the joke, this is like his opportunity to redeem himself after Origins, right? Yeah, he decided he's going to go on this whole time traveling mission, right? Because of his healing powers, right? You know, that'll play a huge role, right? There's a nice moment where Logan wakes up in 1973 and then he realizes like he's banging the daughter of this mob boss, I assume, right? And yeah, you know, he lets his claws out and he realizes, oh shit, is it bone claws? Or because he
Right.
didn't get the adamantium as yet, right? And of course you'll see when you got them with Origins, right? So yeah.
Right.
And there's a cool scene that,
Speaking of continuity, issues, when Kitty is sending him back and Logan, like, he screams out when he's being sent back. You see the claws come out, and it's the adamantium claws. If you remember, in the Wolverine, he lost the adamantium claws, so his bone claws. So, like, how he get back the adamantium? They don't answer that question. So,
Right. Whatever.
that's a little issue.
no, oh,
I
wait,
just
that's a quick question. What were the events of the Wolverine, did they take place after X3 or did it happen before X1? I don't remember.
X3. After X3.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's supposed to be right. It's supposed to lead straight into it because something serious happens and then a ton of time passes. Because that was the post-credit scene with Magneto and X.
With Magneto, I remember that.
Right.
Wow, boy, continuity, boy. Whew.
Yeah,
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Decades passed, so I didn't give a shit. It's like, well,
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. So this is cool scene that follows now where Mystique, right, herself, right, played by Jennifer Lawrence, gets her first fight sequence, right? So you see her in Saigon and she going after some mutants that were fighting in the war. But they were about to be shipped to Trask Industries to be experimented on, right? And what was interesting though is that two of the mutants there were a young Toad, right? Who you will see in the first second movie. And Havoc from First Class, right? Yeah, because we learn later on that he stayed with Xavier after Mystique left. But then, yeah, him and other students from Xavier's school was like, they get drafted to fight in the Vietnam War. So they're like, yeah, there we go.
Also another issue. Why is Wolverine not in the Vietnam War? Why is Wolverine not in the Vietnam War?
Because he is a guy, like he said in X-Men 97, I fought in a lot of wars. He said that. He said that.
Oh God!
I don't know, but again, because I don't remember, because I don't remember Origins. I don't remember if he fought in the Vietnam War. I just remember in that one Civil War team.
He did fight in the Vietnam War.
With him fighting through a good couple of wars. So
I remember that. Yeah, I just can't remember if the Vietnam War was one of them. Anyway, whatever. Continuity, right? Jesus Christ. Anyways, but what makes this fight scene really cool though is that since it's Bryan Singer coming back to return direct this, right? Yeah, we're going back to the whole flexible fighting style that we loved from Mystique, right? You know, where she would flip and do heel kicks. I always find that was like really, really hot. You know what I mean? To see how she used to flip and just kind of slide on the floor and shit. Like, I thought that was really cool though. But yeah, it's a stunt double for Jennifer Lawrence, but whatever. It's Mystique doing that same shit. I love that, right? We also see a young William Stryker Jr. as one of the soldiers, right? His father, if you remember, he was in one of the war room scenes in First Class, right? Of course, he will be the main villain of X2, right? And there was a moment in X2 where he says, yeah, he was in the Vietnam War where your mommy was. I forget what it was. He just kind of make this
second tits.
It would stuck, right? I remember that. Yeah. That was really cool, right? So back to Logan now, right? So there's a moment where Logan stops off at Xavier's school now, and it's all run down and everything like that, right? And Hank opens the door and you realize, hey, Hank is human. If you remember in leading into the third act of First Class, he took the serum, which was supposed to get rid of that, which was supposed to subdue that gene now. And yeah, it literally turned him into the beast, right? But here he's looking human. And you learn why later on, right? But yeah, you also see Charles Xavier as well, right? And he's washed up, the man drunk, and the man can walk to her. And I remember seeing that for the first, like, what? Like, what going on here, right? But then you learn later what happened is that Hank designed a serum to control his own transformation, right? But it's that same serum that Charles uses for his spine, right? Can remember at the end of, which crippled him, right? But the problem is he takes too much of it on a regular basis, so he become a junkie, right?
Yeah, he's basically a druggie. And it's interesting that how being normal for a mutant is like a drug. It's like an addictive drug.
Yes.
That's an interesting thing. I mean,
yeah, it is. Yeah. Right. And Logan explains the situation, and because Charles still feeling bitter over what happened in the end of First Class, and I don't blame him. Yeah, he refused to believe him, right? But the second Logan brings up getting Magneto to help him, Charles does this brilliant callback, right? To a joke from the last film, right? I had to write this out. I'll never forget hearing this in theaters. I think me and everybody else was clapping and making noise, right? I think I do remember you now. Tall, angry fellow with the contentious hair. We came to you a long time ago seeking your help. I'm gonna say to you what you said to us then. Fuck off.
Right.
Perfect mic drop. Everybody erupt. I love that callback.
Awesome
That's
moment.
so great. But yeah, guys. Just as a take a little break. Your thoughts on that mic drop? It was perfect, eh?
Yes, very much
It's a
so.
funny- Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
brilliant way
yeah.
to kind of just bring back that whole
Yeah.
flip. Yeah.
That's a good callback.
Yeah. And yeah, again, it's a callback to a great moment from the first from First Class, which I won't lie, that catch me by surprise, sir, but it's just the bluntness of how Logan responded back then. I love that, right? But anyway, so Charles reluctantly agrees to help Logan, right? So just so he could save Raven. He doing this for Raven, right? Not so much for Eric, right? But he doesn't believe that Eric could be convinced to help them, right? But speaking of Eric, we learn that he is being held prisoner 100 floors down in the Pentagon building,
That's
right?
gone. Mhm.
And we learn why, because he is the one who killed JFK.
Right.
I'll never forget him, that for the first time, man. But before I get to that, so basically, using his magnetic powers, right, he curved the bullet that hit JFK,
Right. So
right?
that's why everybody taking our second shooter.
Right,
Because of that.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
There's so much lore behind the actual man's death that you can
Yeah,
afford
boy.
to pop in.
That's clever.
yeah. Now,
Yeah.
later on, I love that later on, Eric come out and say that he was trying to save JFK from getting sniped
Right.
in the first place
That's also
because
clever.
JFK
Yeah.
was a mutant.
Right.
I love
But-
that. I
but-
love
but
that.
But then again, that line could be taken many different ways. Like, was JFK actually a mutant, or was he just very sympathetic towards the mutant cause? It's like,
But the way we say it, he claimed that JFK himself was a mutant. I think that's the evidence. Like, they say that. Like, because you could find it. Look, I'm trying to look up this website, but yeah, I think it also had that aspect of it. Of there's all this little Ron Wilburn. I'll look for the website and then link it later.
oh, so he actually was a mutant. Okay.
That's the argument, yeah. But I
Yeah.
think also the fellow who's the current president. What's his name? Boy, Nixon, I think.
Yeah, it was
Also
Nixon in the
Yeah,
film.
Nixon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tricky
I think
Dick.
Nixon was
Tricky
also.
Dick, yeah.
Yeah, Nixon was also. I think the mutant as well. I think so. They hint at that. Something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
All right,
Yeah.
so back to Raven now. So she is disguised as Bolivar now. She sneaks into his office now to look for info related to the Sentinel program, right? And there's a nice little Easter egg here where she's looking through this autopsy folder now, and she sees Azazel, right? Who was
Right.
he was one of the badass Nightcrawler type henchmen from First
Well,
Class. So I was like, hey,
that was supposed to be Nightcrawler's dad. Supposed to be.
oh, is that?
Think-
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
implied.
Yes,
I'm not sure.
but
Yeah.
they
In the comics, wasn't
they
They kind of retconned
they
it.
retcon that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Meanwhile, Logan, Hank, and Charles head to DC to meet with young Quicksilver, right? Who
Right.
last time we saw him in in the MCU was back in WandaVision, right? I'll never forget that reveal in WandaVision though, because we all
Listen,
thinking it's Pietro. It's like, oh shit, no, it's even Peters. You're like, what? Okay,
Yeah.
that was hard.
The
But
Americanized-
the net,
it's the
the net
Americanized
went
Quicksilver.
nuts over that, boy. The net went insane for that. Sorry, what were you saying?
Is the Americanized Quicksilver.
Right.
Yeah, boy. But I will lie though. Everybody went nuts when they see that joke, But anyway, also this interesting enough, this is actually the first appearance of Quicksilver in a live action movie, right? 'Cause keep in mind, it's so funny because this came out a year before Age of Ultron, where Aaron Taylor Johnson, aka Kick-Ass, played Pietro. I thought that was really interesting, right? And I bring this up too because Logan said he knew a guy now, but in my head I was saying to myself, wait, it was Quicksilver in one of the older X-Men shows, but actually what he means like in the future he actually knew Quicksilver back then. So it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting, right? So question, right? Peter's adopted sister, right? She tell Logan, I'm a princess, who are you? And then Logan responds, I'm the Wolverine, right? And then her actual mom says, go bug your sister. The girl says, but she bugs me. I'm wondering if the sister in the context of the show here is Wanda.
Probably.
I don't know.
It's
Probably.
implied.
I
It
guess.
was- It's
No,
strong-
it
it's
wouldn't-
strongly implied to be.
implied.
Wouldn't it have been was the other child that he has? Wouldn't it have been like what, Polaris or whatever it is like that? Because I always
Polaris.
assumed Princess was Wanda. So the little girl Princess was Wanda, and the one who always bugs it would have been Polaris. So I figured that.
Well, okay, so here's the thing with that. The girl who was the daughter, he had another child, and Magneto had another child with. That girl was probably Polaris. Because remember, she was freaking out and all the birds was dying off. And well,
Right.
I
Right.
That was an apocalypse, right?
Right, apocalypse.
I
I thought, remember animals, most migratory animals is magnets now. Is driven by so she was interfering with the magnetic sensor now, in the head now. That's why I thought she was Polaris. That's why I thought with that character was Polaris. That little girl now, that second daughter. So it's probably Wanda. I don't know. We don't.
Oh, okay, right. All right.
Okay,
but anyway, Evan Peters though shines as Quicksilver though. I love like just how he talks fast. He has this sort of like ADHD kind of style to like he just always thinking a lot and just moving quickly, right? And just to be all Trini here, he real fast though. Like the man like just went and swipe Charles Wallace. Like, wait, what are you, you FBI or something? Like I check your license.
Yeah, you have nothing to hide.
The man just like moving quick too. You know what I mean? And yeah, you know, surprise, they pretty much hire him, you know, to break Eric out of his prison, right? And he does his job, right? And points for the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon t-shirt that he rocks in this sequence. I love that. I remember the album came out in 1973, right? If you know, you know, right? And there's a blink and you miss it moment. No, I'm not sure if this was the theatrical version or not, right? Where Peter questioned, well, he asks, he say, when he talking to Eric, he's like, oh, you could control metal. And then he says his mom once knew a guy who could do that.
That was in the theatrical.
I like that. All right.
Yeah, that was in the theatrical version as well.
Okay.
And that's another thing with these Fox movies. Is like they set up these familial connections, but they don't do anything with them. Like in X-Men Apocalypse. Yeah, like in X-Men Apocalypse. In X-Men Apocalypse, Mystique spends a significant amount of time with Nightcrawler, and you mean to tell me that they didn't talk to each other and found out that they were related in any way? Like,
I know, right? Jeez, wait, what was that? Anyhow, so there's a good moment right afterwards where Charles, right? Because he's there too with Logan, right? How he says he's not good with violence, and then the elevator opens and you see Eric and he just punch him in the face. Blow! Like, I love that, right? Of course, you have to put the differences aside because a bunch of guards show up, right? And Eric proceeds, right, to move the metal in your room to kill the guards, right? And then Quicksilver does this thing, right? And this to me leads to one of the best scenes in this movie, right? And when I saw it in cinema, the audience was cracking up, making noise, right? And just going off of how just the sheer execution of it, right? And this is where, of course, Quicksilver just showcased just how fast he is, right? I just taking out these guards in this real slapstick kind of fashion, right? You know, he move a bullet here, he tip a hat there, all that kind of stuff, right? But the beauty of the scene, for me, though, is the choice of song, though. Jim Croce, Time in a Bottle. It has this kind of soft, meditative vibe to it, too, with the singing and the guitar playing, right? But the kind of song that you're supposed to, just, you're supposed to calm down to and relax to. But in the context of the show, you see a guy who is moving at absolute top speed and he's just listening to this slow song, though. But it works, right? You know what I mean?
The contrast of the chaos with that track.
Yes, exactly. But before we get to your thoughts on that sequence, right? Because, I want to hear your thoughts on that sequence, right? X-Men Apocalypse did a similar sequence and it was set to Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, right? And I mean, I love that song, right? But because the song have this kind of mid-tempo vibe to it, it didn't really fit, at least in my opinion, with the high-speed stuff that Quicksilver was doing. I think he was trying to rescue a bunch of mutants from the mansion before it blew up, right? Yeah. But that scene is fantastic. It still holds up. I love the VFX working at. I think it's so fantastic that even Zack Snyder and all did his own version of it in the Snyder Cut of Justice League with Flash and Iris. I was like, all right, Zack.
What, the hot dog scene?
Pay a tribute. Okay. Your thoughts on that scene?
Yeah, I personally prefer when you do it like when you have actual speed rather than the whole slow down and freeze time thing to show everything. Like, it's be a fun thing, but after a while it's just it get old. But I don't know how to do it. But this is one of the better examples of doing it, by far. I just think this is such a great scene. You're pushing stuff. These people could be way more dangerous than it is, and I'll get into something that's a big problem with these shows as usual. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Oh yeah, there's a quick correction from before. Yes, JFK is a mutant officially in the
Right.
universe. He's a
Right.
telepath. That's
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
brilliant.
Okay.
yeah. So no,
Brilliant.
the website. The website is called 25 Moments. That's what it is. Look up 25 Moments, and that was a website, but the website is gone. But you can find it on the wiki still. The X-Men movies wiki still exists. But 25moments.com is gone. But yeah, you can find like all of the pseudo historical kind of documentary style stuff in that website. That's what I was trying to remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Daniel and Tracy, yeah, your thoughts on that Quicksilver sequence.
No, it's a really great sequence. It worked better in this film than it did in Apocalypse, honestly, with the use of music and in the use of and the movements and everything. Yeah, it was just a really cool sequence. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Tracy, your thoughts?
Like for me, the Apocalypse one, I didn't have an issue with that because it was very frenetic and that was fine. What I liked was that entire moment of Quicksilver. So like him being a pestering little voice in Magneto's ears, like, what did you do? What did you do? Why are you here? What did you do? What did you do? And breaking him out to even that whole time in a bottle sequence there of turning people's hands to punch their own self and all, like that worked really well. And then I feel like the almost cold cut of the music when he was finished doing what he was doing, and then you just see everything fall apart and everybody just sort of crash into themselves and that kind of vibe. That was deeply hilarious, but it suited the character and the moment for it. What I will say, I did like leading up to that sequence was Charles walking in there and having no idea what to say about anything. Like he's there
Yes.
and he's like, he's representative of section BCDX or whatever.
Yeah, BCFBI.
BCF,
Yes.
and everybody's like, what you're for, what you're about. That was like weird. And so yeah, that's classic.
Yeah, I know it's a minor gripe for some people, but yeah, that's like the big moment that Quicksilver have, and you don't see him again. But look, the man did his job. I understand, and you see him in a little moment near the end of the show anyway. Don't mind us
with
at
his
home watching
sister.
TV, but it was fine, you know. Okay, you would think like with a movie like this that he would have been part of the mission, but no, he do his job, right? Whatever.
Well,
But
you
anyway,
see, my thing is with that, then it leads to what we were talking about in terms of Apocalypse. Because even in Apocalypse, when he's talking to Raven and he says to her, "That's my dad," and she's like, "What?" Like you would think that would have a greater resonance there. Because if it is that you're saying, well, okay, X2, you didn't have, Days of Future Past, you didn't actually utilize him a lot because you just wanted him there for like a cameo or whatever. Make that whole father-son thing be a real deal, but he still walks away without knowing that he has a son, or that Quicksilver is his son, and that really annoyed the shit out of me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like they don't do anything with the familial connections in the Fox movies, which is why I said earlier, it's maddening to me that Mystique and Nightcrawler spend so much time together and none of them figure out that they're related. Like, oh gosh, it's maddening.
I think they just don't want to complicate things, but in trying not to, they make it even more complicated when they hint at it again in other shows. So it's really weird like that, right?